for this year's International Women's Day is Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID-19 World. We are fortunate to have amongst us a panel of extraordinary leaders who have been a constant source of inspiration and knowledge. It is our privilege to listen to them discuss the theme and hear their insights on various ubiquitous topics that drive today's conversation about women in leadership. Post the theme discussion, we will open the floor for a Q&A session with the panel. Before we begin with the theme discussion, I would like to welcome our esteemed director, Dr. Manoj Tiwari sir, to share his words of wisdom with us.
Good evening to all of you, and I wish you all a happy Women's Day. NITIE enjoys the legacy of more than 50 years and is proud to have extraordinary women leaders, including the highest administrative post of the institute was also before me was headed by a woman, Professor Karuna Jain. She was basically from IT Bombay, and there were many of our board members. They are also like Madam Seema, Madam Vijaya. They are involved in our highest decision-making body of the institute. And many of our staff members, they are also from women sections, and they are incredibly doing very well. And we all feel proud to have their achievements in the institute. Particularly during this COVID, a lot of issues have popped up, and we were feeling that how this inclusive leadership can be promoted. And fortunately, this time the theme topic for the International Women's Day is very apt, that women in the leadership achieving an equal future in a COVID-19 world. And this is a very this topic that reflects that how actually in all walks of life we have our women section fighting the odd by having shoulder to shoulder sharing of the responsibilities. And really in NITIE we felt like this, that we have got all the support from our dean. She is also ladies, Madam Hema Dateji, and also our board members, Madam Seema and Madam Vijaya, and even toughest task like monitoring of the construction activity is also taken care by one of the another professor, lady professor, Madam Anju Singh. So we are really blessed with very gritty and very, you can say, powerful women sections, and they have equally supported us in this fight actually. And we are very happy to see that such exceptional panelists are there today. And they are here to motivate not only to our faculty, but battery of the students who are really behind this scene. Perhaps we are not able to see. There are many women sections. They are very much part of this program, and they are very keen to listen to all of my esteemed panelists. And we are blessed to have them. Madam Mrs. Radhika Kulkarni. This is a well-known name. In fact, I'm a member of Inform, so I know her personally, and I have seen some of the things because last 5 years I'm very much active with the different activities. Even, ma'am, you will be happy to know that your former president, who was from University of Wisconsin Madison, my room was very much near to him, so I shared many times the Informs activities with him. And at present, the management science editor-in-chief, Professor Simchi Levy, he is also taking Saturday, Sunday, a class on supply chain digitization and management for us. So it's welcome to you, ma'am, very nicely. And we have really seen that your contributions in the Informs, and for that, you have blessed with WAMS award winner and is the president-elect of the Informed. So after this pandemic is over, ma'am, we really will be very kind if you physically come and be with us. So thank you for participating to this event. And then we have Mrs. Neetu Bhattacharya, And she is the DIG in CRPF of 1991 batch. She is the recipient of Police Medal for Meritorious Service, Antarik Suraksha Padak, and Kathin Seva Padak. As name suggests that she might have worked in a very difficult terrain, because CRPFs are not always posted like in metros. They have a lot of jobs that to be done in the very tough areas like Naxal belt or terrorist belt or northeast. So really, we are feeling proud of you, ma'am, by virtue of your presence here. And then we have Mrs. Nishant Moheb Usmani. Nishant Usmani is presently Director and Head of Leadership of Organization Development at KPMG in India. So welcome to you, madam, here. And then Mrs. Pooja Devan is the Vice President and Chief Data Analytics Officer for OTIS Elevator Company, USA. Prior to this role, Pooja spent more than 20 years at BNSF Railway, where she served as Chief Data Scientist. So there she led the Operations Research and Advanced Analytics Group for 16 years. Her team received international recognition through an Informs Award as the best advanced analytics team in 2009. Really, we are feeling proud to have you this honor, ma'am. And then Mrs. Aparna Vishwasrao. Aparna Vishwasrao has 20 years of experience in pharmaceutical, financial services, and oil and gas sectors. Currently, she is working as a CHRO in Raymond Consumer Care Limited. She has been awarded among the 101 top HR minds in India. Glad to see you, ma'am, at our platform. And then Ms. Jaya Janardanan, she is the CEO at IndoStar Capital Finance Limited, and alumnus from Oxford. She works extensively in the area of women empowerment and actively involved in non-profit organizations called Aspire for her, which works to build the diversity ratio in the country. Really very commendable job, ma'am, you are going ahead with this. And among our students community, the way in which we are celebrating this event, here we have Devalina Datta, student coordinator, and then Madam Professor Seema Unnikrishnan, faculty coordinator, Professor Susmita Narayan, faculty moderator. Then already theme discussions for there. We have the name of the panelists. And then we have our student coordinator. They are going to have all this discussion with you. So with this note, I once again extend my warm welcome to all of you, ma'am, and hope that the deliberations of today's discussions will be fruitful, and this will inspire and motivate our students to do better and follow your footsteps, so that they can also have one day like their CV and credentials you will read here. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks. Thank you so much, sir, for that wonderful address. I've been the chair of the Women Development Cell of NITIE the last few years. I've got the privilege under the able director, Professor Manoj Kumar Tiwari. The last 2 years, we have done quite a lot of work at NITIE to empower women. And this year's theme, as he was saying, is very apt. It's women in leadership, achieving an equal future in a COVID-19 world. So here, the whole last week we have been celebrating Women's Day. We have had a lot of events. We had quiz competition, debate competition, and a whole lot of other events where we have actually the theme for the discussion has been women in leadership, achieving an equal future in a COVID-19 world. And even in our country, we say in all walks of life, it is women who have done a lot. They have been the frontline workers during COVID. They have helped so much as caretakers, innovators. Many women running NGOs have done a lot of work for COVID management. And it also shows that how women can play an important role in all walks of life. According to Women in Business 2021 report, they say that, the coming year will be, women will be able to do a lot, because in the post-COVID world, we can dream of an equal future where women have equal rights. With this brief, I'll now hand it over to Deblina and Sushmita. Professor Sushmita will be the moderator for our event today. She's one of our young dynamic professors. She works in the area of operations and supply chain management.
Many more were young, dynamic.
Yeah, I can add more adjectives.
So, good evening to all of you. Right now, we will be starting the panel discussion. The flow of the panel discussion and the theme is on women leadership, specifically in the post-COVID-19 era. The flow is basically, we would call upon each speaker to come and share their experience on their journey towards achieving the leadership role that they have achieved today, the challenges that they faced, and what is the future outlook that they have for the youth of today. You can touch upon the topics that are close to your heart within your talk. Each of you would get approximately 8 minutes to speak. After the 6 panelists have spoken, we would also be fielding questions from the audience, which is present with us today, specifically NITIE students who are there today and have logged in. And we will be conveying the same to you all, and we will be requesting your responses on the same. So as per a schedule, we would be starting with Dr. Radhika Kulkarni. Welcome, Dr. Radhika, to this event, and hoping to listen from you on your journey and get inspired along the course of the same.
Thank you very much, Seema and Sushmita, for inviting me, and Professor Tiwari for your warm welcome. It's a real privilege for me to be able to speak to all of you. It is wonderful. I always enjoy giving back to my home country in some way, right? And I left India, gosh, in 1977, and I've lived in the US all along. And whenever I visit India, I love to have an opportunity to interact with all of you. So this opportunity is really wonderful. So I'd like to give you a little bit about background about my journey to how I got to where I am today.
And like I've said again, couldn't have done better
So
than having two of these
are you here okay,
today.
Sushmita?
So thank you both for joining us.
Yes, we can.
I'm going to
There
now
is something from the background.
There's some echo somewhere, or
Including you.
yeah. Is it okay now? Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you, sorry. So, I started a long time ago, of course, in mathematics. I was the only girl in maths class in my high school in Bhopal. And that was itself a challenge, but I took it on as a challenge that I should overcome, and wanted to prove that I could really do what I wanted to do. So that's where my journey started, as the only girl in a maths class. Then, of course, I went on to do a BSc in mathematics from Presidency College in Chennai, and a master's from IIT Delhi. And then in 77, I came to Cornell to do a PhD in math. But then in my first semester, I took a course in linear programming. And I had heard from both Seema and Sushmita that almost all the students at NITIE do take a course in OR. So you probably know what I mean when I say I found linear programming to be very exciting, because it seemed to be an area of mathematics where I could clearly see the purpose of it. And so I said, here is math with a purpose. And so I switched to the OR department and got my PhD in 1981. Then I really wanted to go into academia. I was very interested in teaching. I love teaching, and I wanted to become a professor. I even taught for a couple of years at UNC Chapel Hill in North Carolina. My husband, whom I met at Cornell, by the way, is also a professor in the same department. And like all the university is small, so the department was small. There were not too many permanent tenure faculty positions, so I could not find a faculty position. So I ended up working for a private software company, SAS Institute. And that, I think, was one of the first lessons I learned, that you may not always get what you want or what you set out to do. You have to accept some things, but I felt like I got the best of both worlds because I worked with some very, very smart people who are as brilliant researchers as you find in many faculty departments. And I also got to work with a lot of universities with students in universities. So in a way, I got the best of both worlds. So it was really a wonderful journey. I started as an individual contributor, working on research and development in scheduling applications. And then I slowly gained expertise and as well as more management responsibilities. I became the director of the entire operations research department at SAS. And then I recognized that all these disciplines that we talk about today in the world of analytics and data science, which are data mining, forecasting, statistics, optimization, you name it, machine learning, all of these disciplines really can work much better if they work well together. So I saw an opportunity in encouraging interdisciplinary collaboration among all the team members in these different departments. So I put forth the idea that we should combine all of these groups into an analytics division, and let me be a leader for that. And thankfully, my vision was accepted at SAS, and that's how I became the leader of the Advanced Analytics R&D division at SAS. And something that I promoted a lot was this interdisciplinary collaboration, because unless everybody works together, you cannot really succeed. And that was the theme throughout my life. I worked for SAS for 35 years and then retired at the end of 2018. And since then, I've been very much involved with Informs, which I had joined as a student. And this is something that I would really promote to all the young students in the audience. Joining a professional network is something that is very valuable. I found it valuable as a student, and I continued to stay involved. And after retirement, I felt like I could give back to that community. And so I became more and more involved in it. And as Professor Tiwari mentioned, I'm now the president-elect of Inform. So I continue to be very busy, right? Even in retirement. So I'd like to talk a little bit about how even my life, even though I have been retired, it has changed a lot during COVID-19. It has been challenging for everyone, of course, and especially for young families with young children. The world has changed. I don't think we'll ever go back to how things were, but every crisis also leads to innovation in many areas, and it accelerates the pace of discovery. We are really amazed at how fast the vaccine development has taken place, for instance. And even simply, being unable to meet in person, every industry, every company has found out ways in which we can interact really effectively on a virtual platform. And even now today, for instance, we've got people from different time zones on this panel, and we are all talking to each other. And it's been wonderful. Who would have thought that such a discussion could be conducted seamlessly like this, right? So I'd like to talk about what are the new opportunities it has created. COVID-19, lots of opportunities for remote learning, on-demand learning. Universities have had to do virtual classes. It has put some restrictions. It has made life a little difficult, but it has also enabled people to do on-demand sometimes because the lectures are recorded. They can listen to it afterwards. And there has been rapid innovation, like I mentioned before. What are the challenges? Unfortunately, working from home means that there is no clear separation between home and office. So you're there all the time. If your family is large and you have family with you, you're on call. So I can fully empathize and sympathize with the young families who are trying to manage all of that. Like my husband says, no matter what you're doing, you still have to make chapatis, right? So I'm sure all of us have that. But then on a professional front, I would say the lack of in-person contact is an issue. Because how many times would we just walk across the corridor and talk to someone and any issue can get resolved immediately? But now you have to make an appointment, you have to call. Even if you want to talk to 2 or 3 people, you have to have a Zoom meeting or WebEx or whatever. So it has become more challenging, but we are managing. Networking is something that we all miss. Conferences have turned virtual, so that is an unfortunate issue, but we are still making the best of this world. And this, it has created some opportunities even post COVID. I believe that we'll all be able to take advantage of some of these innovations, some of these platforms that have been created, and be able to succeed and expand our reach. So you can have in-person as well as virtual meetings, a hybrid meeting, and so on. And so I think there are lots of new opportunities as well. I'd like to talk just a little bit about, as a women leader, what are the lessons that I have learned throughout my career. Something that I emphasize a lot is that you never stop learning. You should never stop learning. Just because you got your degree and leave college, it doesn't mean that your learning has finished. Your entire journey is going to be a lifelong learning process. And for me, myself, when I started working at SAS, the area that I was given responsibility for scheduling was not anywhere related to my thesis topic or even my focus of studies at Cornell. However, it was a small subject that I had done. I knew that I could pick it up. And so I learned more about it, and that's how I jumped in. So throughout my career, I had to expand what I knew. And sometimes when you're leading a large group of people, it's not possible for you to be an expert in everything. That doesn't matter. Just understand what their strengths are and learn what they know. And so I think that lifelong learning is something that is very, very important. So that's one lesson. The second one is see the big picture. Whenever you're attending a problem or trying to solve a problem, it's very important to see the big picture. And in all my presentations, when I'm talking about this, I like to use the picture of the 6 blind men and the elephant. All of you in India are very familiar with that story. The blind men are standing around the elephant and they're trying to touch and trying to figure out what it is. Somebody says, looks at the trunk and says, oh, it looks like a snake. Somebody touches the foot and says, it looks like a big tree trunk. So each one is very, very sure that he is right or she is right. So, but you step back and then you see the whole elephant and then you say, this is how this piece fits to this piece. So that is very, very important. Look at the big picture. That will help you understand the other people's point of view. And maybe sometimes their point of view might actually give you better ideas, and maybe you're even wrong. So be willing to accept that. So seeing the big picture is very important. And the final thing I would say is take a seat at the table. Be sure that if you have been invited to take part in something, it's because you have something to contribute. I remember very well the first time the vice president of my division, I was still one of the younger employees in the division. The vice president invited me to come to a meeting because my immediate boss was not available. So I went to the meeting, and you know how at a conference table, everybody sits around the table. There are some chairs on the periphery. So I went and sat in one of the outer ring, and I said, well, I'm not really supposed to be there. So I sat at the back, and my vice president said, Radhika, you've been asked to come to this meeting, sit at the table because you have an important role to contribute here. Take that and don't ever shirk from that responsibility. So that is something that is a very, very important lesson that I've kept throughout my career. If you have been invited to do something, don't shy away from it and sit back. Be confident of your abilities and be ready to speak up if you need to express yourself. It doesn't mean that you have to overtake the conversation and just speak just because. You have to have a reason and put it forth. So be respectful of others, but do speak up. So these are three of the most important lessons I feel will help you succeed. And for young girls, especially as you're entering the workplace, I would say be confident of your skills, enthusiastic about your work, and take pride in your accomplishments. So I think I'll stop here and let some of the other panelists talk as well. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts and my experiences.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think that was a very crisp speech, and I'm sure we just got probably the tip of the iceberg of your entire life's journey. But thank you so much for bringing it and giving it in such a concise fashion for all of us to understand. Uh, I call upon next our esteemed dignitary, Ms. Neetu Bhattacharya. I hope you're able to join in, ma'am. Neetu, ma'am, are you there?
She's there. She had to unmute.
She's muted herself.
Yeah.
Yes. So maybe we can wait a bit before she gets back in.
Very different, as you just mentioned, you're 52, I'm 51. So the journey that we took and the times that we went through must have been the difficult times. But I'm sure that that is the path that a lot of people took to be able to reach.
Oh, Neetu ma'am, your video and your mic are both switched off.
Is it possible for someone to call her, perhaps?
Yes, we are doing that right now.
Is actually just a deficit of capacity. The moment you realize that there is this capacity deficit that you are able to overcome, the risk itself gets defeated in itself. So what is this incredible organization of UN Women doing? It's actually giving us this opportunity and a platform for all of us to come together and do this journey together into a world that can be a much, much better place. So what also we are also saying here is that if we look into our own mythology, if there was one Eve who could turn the world upside down, imagine if all of us get together, how many times the world can be topsy-turvy, as many times as we would want it to. So basically, it's also a question. It's also a question of mental strength. It's a question of believing in.
I think we lost Neetu there for a bit. I will suggest that we continue with the next speaker and we can get Ms. Neetu on board again, because I think we just lost quite a bit of what she was speaking. The next speaker that we have on board and with us is Ms. Nishath, who was introduced, presently the Director and Head of Leadership and Organizational Development at KPMG. Ma'am, welcome to the session today, and very keen to hear your thoughts on your journey and the challenges and the future outlook for women in leadership, especially in the post-COVID-19 era. Over to you.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here, really. You know, I think conversations like these is what makes all the difference. So when your student representative reached out, I was so happy to be here. And indeed, listening to Radhika was such a pleasure. You know, these are the pearls of wisdom that one would never know unless we participate in forums like this. So really, this is such an honor and a pleasure to be here. Okay, so this is a rather difficult thing to do, you know, to talk about your own story. You know, it's hard as it is. It's very difficult to actually articulate what your story is. So I'll start from the very beginning. I come from a culture where education is very important. Yeah? So my parents did everything that they could to ensure that I got a good and the best education. However, a career is not something that was on the cards. Yeah? Now, I differentiate the two. It's not about a job. Some of my cousins do work. I'm talking with the women. But having a career is not something that women in my family and my community do. And that's the big difference, really. When you start looking at what Radhika was saying, the big picture, right? The story is very different, vis-a-vis when you see life in small blocks and chops. So the first part of my life was really about struggling to find that big picture, because I think a career is about a long picture. It's about saying, what am I going to be doing 2 years down the line, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. I never had that luxury or the wisdom of thinking like that, perhaps because of the place where I came from. I think the other challenge I have faced is the fact that because it was so convoluted, the whole story, there was a whole lot of emotional baggage for me. So if, when often people ask me, what challenges did you face? I think beyond the point, the physical challenges go away, right? The children grow up, you get the maids right, finally the husband is all right. Yeah. But I think what's happening in your head, that's something that you have to every day struggle with. I struggle with saying bye to my children every day. Yeah? First, for the longest time, and I was wondering, is my place better at home? Because certainly there are two lovely daughters here who need me just as much. But so the emotional struggle of it, if you ask me, is far more difficult to get through rather than the physical one, which eventually goes away. So I think that was my second big thing. I think the third big aspect to my story, before I get into, therefore, what learnings do I have for all of you on this call? The third big aspect was having a vision. Yeah. Again, it's cliche as it may sound. It's very difficult to dream about something that you can't even see, and yet it's that dream that makes a difference. Now, I've written about this in one of my posts that there was a time when I remember thinking to myself, I was about 22, 23, just out of MBA, and thinking to myself that what, I'm going to have a career, and I'm going to have children, because that was what I thought was for me the perfect life. I'm not saying that's the only perfect life, but I had that vision. I said to myself almost unbelievingly that this is how it's going to come together for me. And that ability to have a vision, I feel, is a big thing today, and most people miss it. And I spend some time trying to really get around my head around that. The fourth thing I like to say about my story part is the search for a purpose. I think there comes a time in your life when you really want to tell yourself, what is it that I really want? Why am I here, and what am I really contributing to? It took me a while, but I think that the single biggest thing we all need to find in our lives is the sense of purpose. Because once the purpose gets sorted, right, the job falls in place, the timings will fall in place, the mechanics of it all, the salary, the designation, the role, everything falls in place. But the purpose is single most important. And in a very difficult and different phase in my life, I figured what my purpose was. I figured that my purpose was really to be in the world of learning, to be in the world of talent development, to be in the space where I'm contributing to a community from an education standpoint. And it almost like it's almost organic, when you develop that purpose, slowly everything falls in place. So I'd say me being able to develop my purpose and the fact that I wanted to be in learning was a big part of my story. I'll get to some mistakes that I made, because I really think, we talk less about our mistakes, but the biggest learning is there, for those of you who are listening in. I think my one biggest mistake is to go for perfection. I'll give an example. At the time when my first child was born, and I said to myself, you know what, I have to sit back. I have to look after this little one. And we were living in a nuclear family. There's no way I can do everything together, right? What you don't realize is that this is not it's not that the child grows up, much like a career, right? It's not like that one promotion that you want. Life and motherhood is really about a journey. It's really about saying, okay, one step at a time, and may not be the most perfect step. It may not be the best thing, but it's progress. Right? So I think the need to aim for perfection, the need to abide by what the whole world is saying, or what the society feels. I think that need is very very detrimental to women's progress. And I think the faster we curb that need, the happier we will be. So I think that's the first one. The second big mistake I feel I have made is this need to belong very quickly. You want to tell yourself, oh, I am a person who's like this, I'm a person who believes that, working for X number of hours is the right thing to do, or I'm a person who's a mother who prioritizes. No, life is very, very evolutionary. Don't be in a hurry to belong. Don't be in a hurry to tell yourself that, no, you know what, this and nothing else defines me, because that's exactly when you stop growing. And that, to my mind, is one of the big mistakes. People, I see a lot of younger, I'm also young, I like to believe that. Yeah. I see a lot of younger folks really saying, I'll do this and I'll do that. I'll be in strategy, and I'll do stand-up comedy in the evening, and I'll write a blog in the afternoon. I mean, that's how you should be, be someone who's the whole and complete you. And I think the third big learning I have had is that if you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. So very important to articulate your point of view. It's hard work, by the way, because this is the inner game. You have to be able to tell yourself, what is my story? What do I want to be known for? What do I stand for? What will I not tolerate in a meeting? What will I not be okay with if someone tells me something? What kind of roles will I not be okay to do? What kind of roles do I want to do? Like I remember what Radhika said, claim the seat at the table. Have a view, have that view. And it may sound so elementary to some of you, but it's so hard to do that. It's the societal pressures inside you will just hold you back and make you feel, it's okay, just so fine, just sit back, don't go there, don't say that, don't ask the question. So it's really very important to have then what I believe is a point of view. Yeah. So that's a little bit about the story so far. I want to talk about this catastrophe that has struck us in the shape of COVID-19. I and my family had a particularly difficult time. I lost my father to COVID. It was perhaps the most traumatic times in my life. But I want to talk a little bit more generally about what that means, or what that's meant for me as a working women professional. Yeah? Let me relate this incident to you. So there was a time when, early lockdown, and the maids stopped coming, and there was so much, the work at office became twice as much, but there was no domestic support. We all know that. You'll recognize this. And I realized I found myself doing everything. Yeah, I found myself cooking and cleaning and do everything that the maids are supposed to do. I had started to do. Yeah? Now, don't get me wrong. I have the most supportive husband and the most amazing children, but in my head, I have created this view of myself that I am to be the person who's responsible for these things. So when I sat back, I thought to myself that all these stories about being an empowered woman, not having a stereotype, and telling yourself that I'm different, actually fell apart. What I had been doing so long is simply outsourced my vision. I had outsourced my vision of providing to the maids, but when they disappeared, I had to tell myself, oh, it's back to me. You see what I'm saying? It is something so deep-seated that you don't even realize that you're going through it, right? So I think, the point I'm trying to make to you all on this wonderful panel and to all the students out there is that some of these things are so deeply rooted, you don't even realize them. And in fact, one of them happened today, where I took my mom to the doctor, and as I was coming out, my mom said that the doctor asked me, are you married? Yeah? And I chuckled to myself and I said, oh, that's so nice. So she doesn't know I have an 18-year-old daughter and she's asking me, am I married? What am I doing? I'm feeling happy with the stereotype. Yeah? The stereotype that women should be young and pretty. And if you're not that, then there's something wrong with you. So if someone confirms that whole thing for you, you feel nicer about life, right? So everyone, what I'm trying to emphasize here is that some of the deep cultural wiring that we have is very hard to break through for both men and women. Yeah? There's a very interesting HBR study that was done early 2020, where they found out what are the reasons why, this was in PwC, they found out why is it that women drop off from the ladder, from the corporate ladder. And they found that the reasons why men or women drop off from the ladder is not different. Yeah, the same reasons. They want to have a better work-life balance, they want to spend more time with the children. The reasons are the same for men and women. But what is different is the response that men and women have. Yeah? The response the society is okay with. Yeah? And therefore, what changes then is the way we handle. The woman leaving a job is okay, but for a man to leave a job is a problem. Yeah? So I'd say these cultural aspects impact us so much. And I think the last point before I close is that COVID has brought about the big problem that paid care or unpaid care that women do, the unpaid work that women do at work, and how that so deeply impacts. So if as a society we need to move, we need to make a change in the way we see domestic work, in the way we see childcare, in the way we see the way we care for the elderly. Until and unless we don't make this paid or affordable, women are always going to sit back and say, let me do this because this is the more right thing to do, right? So that's how I think COVID has changed so much for women. There's a McKinsey study which talks about how women are far more likely to be impacted with the COVID. Women have lost more jobs than men have, and this will continue. Yeah, this trend will continue. In fact, as of today, I was in a meeting where some of my colleagues were at the client site and I wasn't. Yeah? And I was thinking to myself, what if you fast forward a couple of days, months further, and you realize that some of us can go to work and some can't. And what does that mean? So everyone, we are at a very exciting and difficult stage as far as women leadership is concerned. But I think the opportunity lies in the fact that with technology, women can now transcend barriers, actually work across geographies, and actually for the first time ever, our talent will be far more important than where you are or where you belong. Yeah. So I'm going to close with that. It's back to you, Sushmita.
Thank you so much. I think you brought out the gender-centric expectations that society has from us, as well as the ones that we put on ourselves and try to abide by so strongly. So it was very nice to hear from you on the same. And I completely agree with all the points on how much trouble we faced when there was no one to help us with the work that we take it for granted. So the next speaker, thank you so much, Nishath. And the next speaker whom we have is Dr. Pooja Devan. Welcome on the dais, Dr. Pooja. And it's very much of an honor for us to have you here because we are an Institute for Industrial Engineering, and you have done your PhD from the Penn State University in Industrial Engineering. So it's quite nice to have you on board and share your thoughts with us on how you reached this place and how come you are with OTIS Elevators. We are all very curious to hear about how you are here.
Thank you, Sushmita. You know, I've known Radhika for a long time, and I was sending her a message. Her story still continues to inspire me. It's so glad to be hearing the story from Radhika, from Ishan. Such wonderful, accomplished women out there. So I'm going to take a little bit of time and talk a little, like, you know, Sushmita, you said, I am near and dear industrial engineer, as you said. So I grew up in Delhi, and, you know, I went to Delhi College of Engineering and did my industrial engineering degree. And in fact, you know, that was one of the first times I got exposed to the stereotype, you know, the expectations out there, because I had much higher percentage to be able to be qualified for other engineerings too. But I had the fortune of being exposed to having a family friend who was a professor in Michigan who used to teach industrial engineering. And when I listened to the kind of work they do, it enamored me so much that, you know, the thought and the clarity of what I wanted to be doing in my life was clear. So that's led me to, you know, my undergrad in industrial engineering, and then my master's and PhD, for which I came to Penn State, and again in industrial engineering. So, you know, Radhika and Nishath shared their journey out there. Mine was a little bit different from the perspective that, you know, I was very fortunate to be exposed to a family where there was very strong emphasis on education, just like Nishan said. And I didn't have to, and there were no expectations. My mom was working, so there was not that, I didn't see that there was a dichotomy between education and career. So I really didn't have to be, you know, living under that umbrella of what women and men are supposed to do. So I was very fortunate living in India and not still being exposed to these gender expectations out there. In fact, when I came abroad, my parents were quite okay with it because I didn't know a single person over here in the US. And they knew that education was very important to me, and I wanted to become a faculty member at some point in an engineering school itself. So they thought that this was just a part of the process itself. So, these gender parity issues and what expectations are really did not get exposed to them till later in my life. I mean, I loved math, I loved sciences. I broke my own share of things, which my parents didn't complain about. I fixed my own share of things. So, I was a born engineer, kind of thought through that process. So I want to talk a little bit, beyond what Radhika has talked to you about, since you guys are near and dear in industrial engineers itself. So my undergrad, master's, and PhD kind of reflect what Radhika said, which is keep a curious mind and continue to learn. I mean, my undergrad was very focused around production and, what I would call as industrial engineering from the mechanical engineering perspective. I mean, I loved welding, I loved casting. In fact, in my master's, I used to teach kids how to weld and cast, and it never occurred to me that, I'm a small little frame and I have these heavy goggles and all on. It was fun to see how the iron responds to heat, and that's what I enjoyed. So, but in my master's, as I started getting to a point where I wanted to have that learning opportunity I went more towards automation. So, this is, in the 1990s where still AI is not there, but I had the fortune of being exposed to automation labs and being able to figure out how do you integrate robotic systems and automation into the manufacturing process. And from there, I went into my PhD, which was completely different, again, blending from hardcore creation and manufacturing to more what, Radhika said, learning into LP, linear programming. How do you really use the computers and math to manage and organize? So my PhD ended up being in supply chain and more towards optimization. So, even though I was part of industrial engineering, I continued to change the way I approach that learning itself, with a huge emphasis on, going and evolving around the journey. I was still working on my PhD when I got hired by BNSF Railway. And even though, here's the story where you will hear from Radhika too, I had always thought I'll become a faculty member. My husband, whom I met in Penn State, was a few years, senior to me. So I kind of followed him to Texas while I was finishing up my PhD, and BNSF was supposed to just be a hop on the way so that I can be close and we can be in the same city, and while I finish off my PhD, and then I would go for my faculty position. Did I know that I fell in love with, just a practitioner's job, and I, enjoyed it as much as all my teaching in my master's and PhD I did teaching this kids out there. So that's how my practitioner's journey began. Like Radhika said, I started off as an individual contributor, but within a few years itself, I was given the responsibility of the team and to grow the team. So this is the point where, you are talking about really railroads. If a lot of you must be taking networks and linear programming. So I got a chance to establish a team and kind of make them leverage hardcore math on how we schedule crews, how we route trains, and create a much more optimized railroad system out there. Then entered the big data world. So I continued to grow my team and bring in the emphasis as, the Internet of Things was happening, more and more data being generated. How can we leverage that massive amount of data and continue to improve, how we maybe detect failures in the field or detect, challenges happening and create a response. So that was the first half of my journey where, I spent really on the big data side, on the optimization side, setting up a team that ended up getting the recognition at Informs in 2018 as the best analytics team in the world out there. From there, I came on to OTIS Elevators, where I got the privilege of same things, where I'm responsible for setting up now the data and analytics organization within OTIS Elevators. I'm sure, most of you, when you press the button, if you've not already noticed it, make sure you notice that we are the biggest elevator company in the world. And I've had the fortune to be able to now do the same thing that I did for BNSF, to basically make OTIS leverage, the data and analytics to drive decision making. And it's been a journey over here, again, a different experience where, trying to, in a completely different world, but as industrial engineers, as all of you know, our skills are very adaptable and very, similar. Kind of deal with making sure that we leverage the same skills, but now providing a better, seamless, smarter elevator experience, or how do we enable our mechanics and our technicians on being able to fix it. So, I think I want to take a point. I have talked a little bit about my industrial engineering background and how I became a technical leader and how I came here. I want to emphasize a few minutes now on something that Nishath and Radhika have told you as I went through the journey, how and where I landed, of things that you need to keep in mind. I'm going to emphasize one of the most dearest things that Radhika called out first one. Be a continuous learner. Be curious, continue to learn. I mean, people think learning is going and getting degrees, getting certifications. 90% of your learning will happen without certification. 70% of it is on hands-on training, on hands-on experience, 20% you talking to the others and informally learning, and only 10% contributes is from formal education. So, Radhika talked about raising your hand. Raise your hand. Those experiences will teach you a lot. So, keep that, Nishath said, focus in mind. What do you want to do? And even if you do not have the background, you can, with the help of people, get there. And there is tremendous, resources available out there to help you out there. So I'm going to say, make that a mantra. My grandfather used to say that, when you stop learning, you might as well, go away, because there is no point. So you have to continue to learn, and learning it has to just take a different journey of its own. I talk to you. I mean, I was an industrial engineer through and through. I mean, I've gone through my own evolution of doing hardcore manufacturing, going into automation, going into distributed computing and optimization, machine learning, AI, all of these were continuous things. And not only that, I talked about technical. In terms of leadership itself, being an individual contributor versus being able to lead people is a very different skill set itself. I mean, I talked to you about leading technical teams. About 10 years ago, just to grow me as a leader, I had asked for leading operational teams. So for a while, I actually led round-the-clock operational teams for 2 years, when I led one region and then the next region while I was leading technical team. And it showed me how different teams respond and think, and what do you do to motivate them and to get them. So people skills, focusing on people, it's a very different skill that's not taught to you in technical, it's not taught to you in engineering schools. Whereas, we are humans, and the best things you will ever be able to get is by connecting to people as people. And we tend to ignore that, the biggest part of the equation. So continue to learn. The number 2 I'm going to ask you to do is something that is very important, is build your networks. You cannot do it all alone, okay? Invest in your professional networks and invest in your social networks. There is too much expectations we lay ourselves, okay? Multiple minds are always going to be better than one mind. Your professional networks, people that you invest in, that you trust in, can help you sometimes answer or act as your sounding boards to help you understand when you really don't know which way you want to go. Same way on your social networks. I mean, Nishath talked about. I mean, I came abroad, my mom and my mother-in-law were both working. I'm so thankful to them. I mean, when I came here, I did my PhD, and before, I know I had my son and, my first one, and, they really helped me out the first year. I did not have to think about the fact that I need to give up my career. Neither did my husband expect that. My mom and my mother-in-law were there to help me out. There was adjustments we needed to make, having lived independently for so long. But at the same time, it enabled me to have that freedom to continue to not take a break. So these social networks will help you out as you go through the journey. And these expectations we talk about, a lot of them are us laying it on ourselves. Right? It is, I will tell you, I've got a very supportive husband and I have 2 boys and they're very supportive. But I did not want to ever feel guilty that I'm a working mom. So from very young on age itself, I told my kids, I will not be able to be there in every function that you have during the middle of the day, because I have a job. And to me, it was not a moment of guilt. It was a moment of me explaining to them the responsibility that when you work, you have as an adult. But I did ask them and include them in that decision, to ask them saying, hey, which one of these would you really want me to be part of? And then I moved heaven and earth to be there for them at that point of time. So the reason I'm saying is you cannot do it alone. A lot of these expectations and types that you're setting up is dialogues sometimes we are playing for ourselves. But when we engage the people who love us in our life to help us out, we will realize we are not alone in that process. So invest in that process and make sure you do. And the third thing I'm going to do is to give back. And what do I mean by that? I mean, if you are going to this wonderful institution with all the gender parity issues, with all the issues you're talking about, there are a lot of other social injustices happening in the world. Think about poverty. Think about the fact that education being one of the biggest, indicators for success for people, and yet so many people are worrying about kids that are working around as house helps because they are earners for their family, and they don't even get the chance to go through that basic education that they need to succeed. So each one of you has more than what you are realizing. So the moment you realize that, you are going to realize that even those little actions you can take, maybe if you have a help at home, who is a kid, don't think about just women, but a little boy too. Can you help them get that education? How can you do that little one step at a time to help out with social justice around the world? It's, I know women, poverty, religion, there is just so many issues that are giving that, challenges in this environment for people to play full out, and they can now. So we all play a role in doing our one-off. So, I will tell you, and Nishath, this is something that I would encourage, and the other women to be thinking about. I have 2 boys. When pandemic started, yes, a lot of work at home became the responsibility. But as a parent, I also thought it was very important for me to have a discussion, both with my husband and with my boys, to say, okay, we all got to figure out and how we will chip. There were days where there's too much homework, then you will not. Me and my husband will chip in. But that doesn't mean that you do not have a role. Why is that important? The important part to me is I do not want my sons growing up expecting that the women around them will be looking after them. As much as I love to cook, I made sure they know how to fix food for themselves if I'm not available. And these are small little things each one of us needs to do to give back, to get bigger social justice happen in the world, so that the people that, young ones out here do not have to feel that pressure that it is all on them and not on the others. And these little actions will catch up. So I've taken more than my fair share of time. So I'm going to, Sushmita, turn it back to you guys. And thank you again for inviting me. And it's so wonderful to hear these wonderful stories of these accomplished women out there.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Pooja. We've also got back Neetu ma'am on WebEx. We had lost you for quite a bit and you're again on mute. So we want you to unmute yourself. Yes, yes. We can hear you and we can see you as well. Please, we invite you to please share your journey with us. We lost quite a bit, so you need to start from the beginning.
First of all, a very happy Women's Day to all the panelists and to everybody who can hear us. I'm so sorry for the kind of tech errors that we've been having for quite some time. And therefore, I must have missed out on some part. I'm sure it would be an incredible thing to be able to listen to everybody at a later video. The International Women's Day is a celebration of not just what each of us could have achieved individually, or where each of us has reached as individual people, but it's also a celebration of all that we've been able to achieve together. It's an incredible journey of being able to take some footsteps, very tentative footsteps, surely some certain, some uncertain footsteps that we take in our initial stages. But as time goes by, we realize that it's important to be able to take this journey of confidence of this entire world that lies before us. I happen to be one of those initial women who would join the armed forces. This was way back when the organizations were, and the country itself was raising the first women battalions. And my organization is the first in the world to be able to raise one. And once we joined, we realized what actually happens when this woman from a rural area, once she joins the organizations, what is the transformation that takes place within herself? She realizes that here she is with a power and with some authority, but taking a journey within herself to be able to understand what she herself is doing. There is a transformation that takes place in the society from where she comes, because they realize that if she can do it, I can do it. More than that, once she gets deployed into a conflict area, there's a huge transformation that takes place in the conflict area itself. Here are the vulnerable sections of the society. It could be a natural disaster, but it could also be conflict areas. There could be militancy or exigencies of service. There could be a law and order breakdown, which is, if one of us is caught in such a situation, what is it that we would be looking for? We would be looking for a woman, because we understand that here is a person who will be able to empathize with whatever I'm undergoing. She will be able to give me that calming thing. How do you get people back into the mainstream? I believe militancy or any conflict across the world can survive only till the women do not support it. The moment we withdraw our support, there can be no conflict, because that is an innate strength and ability of women to be able to resolve the conflict, to be able to ensure peace, and to be able to ensure peace on a very long-term basis, because she is one who is the highest stakeholder in a conflict. If we bring women to the peace table, she's going to ensure it, because her family gets affected, she herself gets affected, and she knows that everything can be resolved only once peace comes in. So what is actually risk when we get deployed into these areas? How do we define risk for ourselves? Risk is actually a deficit of our own capacities and capabilities. So on the International Women's Day, all that I would want to say to you and to our co-panelists with whom I'm sharing this is just one thing. The world can be a better place. Let's do it together. You and I together can make a much, much better place, as long as women are able to support each other, as long as we are able to be able to set right the crooked crown without letting anyone else know. Let's try and just be with each other. Just being with each other, and our journey will be complete. Thank you so much for having me here on International Women's Day.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was a very different perspective that we've heard, and it was an honor to have you on board as a speaker. Welcome to the podium, and also welcoming back you here. We have next Ms. Aparna Vishwasrao. Aparna is a familiar face at NITIE. She had earlier visited us in 2018 to be part of the Women in Logistics and Supply Chain Management panel that we had set up. And the seminar, that was the first ever seminar that we did on women and their role in this field. So welcome back, Aparna. Aparna, I think you're on mute, so you need to unmute yourself.
Yeah.
No, you're there. So over to you, Aparna. Very keen to hear your journey. I think we have not touched upon this before.
Yeah, sure. So it's my pleasure to speak, with these esteemed panelists, and many thanks to Professor Sushmita and Professor Seema, and of course the students to invite me to speak on this day, which is very, very close to my heart amongst all the days that we celebrate. So I would just refer to 2018 when I visited NITIE. So that time I was working with MSD Pharmaceuticals, which is called as Merck, and I just joined Raymond Consumer Care last year during lockdown. So both are very important events in my life. So about Merck, or MSD as it is called, which is like the top 5 pharma companies in the world. So I started, the diversity movement in the country, and which was very strong in USA, as you know, like the gender diversity movement. And we sort of started celebrating International Women's Day as one of the initiatives, sort of to strengthen the diversity agenda in the company. So that's the reason it's very important for me in my family. I'll be very honest with you, it's almost like a festival now. And and it was my little niece who many years back told me that, asked me rather this question. So what kind of a woman are you, and on this day? And I was really taken aback because she was like just 7 years old, and I had not thought till then what kind of a woman I am. And so I asked her, so what kind of a woman are you? She said, I'm a sportswoman. So I told her, okay, I'm a very hardworking woman then if you're a sportswoman. So so that's the importance that International Women's Day has in my life. Now coming to the questions that Professor has posed to us. So the first one was around, whether women are at a disadvantage as far as COVID is concerned. The second question, I think, was around the pay parity. The third was around the measures that one could take to ensure that, sort of women advance even in a post-COVID world. So I would try to address all these questions through both, my experiences in my personal and professional life. So I'll first go back almost a year back when I joined my current organization. That is after serving Merck for 12 years, both in local, regional, and global roles. So it was, I thought that, okay, I'm getting a job of my choice because I always wanted to be in India. And I joined sort of under lockdown, and within 15 days of joining, I joined, as I said, under lockdown, and within 15 days, my responsibilities got sort of enhanced. And along with one company, I had responsibilities for 8 other companies in the group as well. And the company was going through a lot of restructuring. And I thought like I was quite adept at work from home because we had got used to it in Merck since 2009 or 2010. But of course, there was a lot of surprise because working from home under lockdown, I can share with you, is a very, very different ball game as compared to working from home in a routine way. And of course, without household help, because we in India are used to household help. And if I have to just speak about my job then, like about a year back, 15-16 hours were certainly not enough. If there are some participants from my organization in this group, they know about it. So then what did I do? Because it was impossible to run the household and do the job. So the first thing I did was I sought help, and help came in the form of neighbors who actually helped me quite a bit in the household tasks, especially the cooking part, which I found it next to impossible along with to do that task along with my day and night job in Raymond Group. The second thing that I learned during the lockdown was if you have to, sort of stay tough, survive, not just survive, but succeed, it required like all kinds of energies. What we call is, in our leadership roles, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. So by physical energy, I mean the actual, physical part of doing your job. By emotional, I mean the kind of feelings that you can that you run through, the kind of feelings that you invoke in your team, because it's your team, right, that is going to help you, and the organization that you are supposed to lead. And then, of course, mental, which is a part which is the intellectual energy, and fourth is the spiritual part, which I mean like the ideas and your inner drive and strength that keeps you going. So these were my two key learnings, that it sort of takes a village to keep your household and your job going during COVID. And the second thing was, as I said, using all your energies to sort of excel in your job. And let me tell you, today it is International Women's Day, but I feel it is pretty much gender agnostic. The experience that I went through, my male colleagues also went through the same experience. So because we were sharing notes and stuff like that, whether they were in my organization, in my current organization, or my earlier organization, or people who worked with me even earlier. So I'm working since 22 years now. So that was my experience with COVID. Now coming to the current reality, which is so-called the post-COVID world, and we use terms like the new normal and stuff like that. And Professor had posed a question, like if women are at a disadvantage. So I feel that COVID was, equally challenging to both men and women, because I've had, primarily my, if I talk of not just my organization that has a male CEO and my direct reports who were all, males, I really saw that they went through a lot of trouble managing both the job as well as, the household, along with their wives who were also working, and they had children. And especially, if I have to talk about, I always talk about this to my team members, about the person to whom I report, who's the CEO of my current organization. I really thought that it required extraordinary strength and resilience to turn around, because we were also in a merger, etc., during COVID and expanding. So to turn around the organization during COVID. So, and I really admire him a lot. And it's, if he was a woman, we would have said that it's a woman who's gone that extra mile. But what I'm just trying to say is both men and women went through, sort of similar challenges. I said, including my direct reports who went through a lot of challenges due to COVID. The second thing I want to share, about COVID is whether it, as I said, the first point was, of course, it was equally advantageous or disadvantageous both to men and women. The second thing, as I said, was a lot of great determination and hard work to sort of succeed during these times. And whether you are a, male team member or a female team member, everyone had to sort of equally demonstrate that. Now coming to women in general, and if I have to speak about my experience and experience of about other women, especially in India, where the household work is not, equally or equitably distributed. Of course, I think women went through a lot of hardship and challenge. And I think they had to sort of deploy a lot of techniques sort of to overcome that, whether it was, as I said, for me, it was seeking help from the neighbors. Many people called their parents over and stuff like that. And I think Pooja spoke about it, like having an effective social network to tide over, the day-to-day challenges, as well as to tide over crisis like these. So yeah, so these were my two key learnings of the past, sort of 1 year. Now, if I talk about myself, I think that the world is equally challenging and unequal, whether it is COVID or no COVID. We have the World Economic Forum report. Many of you are aware of it. They declare, they sort of publish the gender gap report every year, and there are 4 parameters on which they measure, equality, gender equality. And first is health, second, as you all know, is education, third is economic contribution of women, and fourth is the political participation and empowerment. And they say that it's going to take, according to that report, 99.9 years for us to actually arrive at an equal world. Does it sort of match with my observations and my experience? Yes and no, both. Yes, because, yeah, you know, if I have to speak about my career journey, so I did my, like everyone here, of course, I also come from a family where education was given a lot of importance. I think most of us would be coming from similar backgrounds, including the students, 108 students who are here. I had a you know, pretty smooth sail like till 2005. I did my master's from Tata Institute of Social Sciences. I'm basically from Mumbai. It was called Bombay then. Before that, I went to DG Ruparel College. And then, you know, it was all fine till 2005. I really did not feel there were any barriers, you know, to sort of achieving your career objectives or simply excelling in your career, whether you are a, you know, a man or a woman, a boy or a girl. And then, of course, there were certain personal considerations, because of which I took a decision that, you know, I want to take a step down in my career. So I became an HR head pretty early on in my life, like in 2005. Within just, I think, 7 years of a pretty large organization, within 7 years of me starting my career. But then because of my personal challenges, I actually took a decision that I want to go in for a second in command role, which was, and I couldn't sort of, you know, that time, today I have the courage to speak about it. That time I did not have the courage. I simply left my, you know, started looking out silently for a second in command job. And I got it only after 2.5 years. Because I was a HR head, I wasn't finding a job which was, you know, sort of a second in command. As you know, if you know how the job market in India works, you actually find like an equal job or a higher job. No one gives you a lower job, other than if there's something drastically wrong with you. So, you know, but I had my reasons, and those were choices that I made. And I obviously did not regret. And I joined MSD, you know, which is Merck, in a second in command role. And they were a startup in India. And I think I got a lot of good experiences. And then, of course, again, when it comes to your promotions and stuff like that, all the opportunities were outside of India. And I got, I think, minimum that I recollect, 4 conversations with my bosses, twice to go to USA, once to Middle East, once to CIS. And all the time I told them that, you know, I'm not open for relocation, but my organization was very kind. And what they did was they sort of crafted or engineered roles for me that could be based out of India. So I got an opportunity to work in all the continents of the world in the last 13 years or so. So the lesson here for me was that if you have an enabling and conducive environment in your organization, you can thrive and grow, you know, despite whatever limitations or challenges that you may have in your, you know, personal or professional life. But the lesson number 2 that I would like to share with everyone, especially the girls, is there's no substitute for, you know, sort of great hard work and what we call as accomplishments. So only if you have, you know, like, as they say, a body of good work to support you, or, you know, only then would the organization sort of concede to your demands or concede to your requests. Otherwise, you know, you naturally would part ways amicably in case there are no career opportunities for you in the organization and you're not open for relocation either. So that's the second part, or the second lesson that I learned. You know, and I was also surprised that, okay, every year the organization is sort of adjusting to my request or allowing me to work the way I want to work. Yeah, but of course, there was something that went along with it, and which was, you know, the accomplishments, the results that one was able to sort of bring to the table, or the value that one was able to bring to the table. Now comes sort of the third part of this conversation. If girls or women stand at a disadvantage in, I think there's some slide disturbance. Just give me a second.
Yeah.
Has it gone now?
No, we can hear you, Aparna.
You can? Okay, great.
And also, toward the end, we have one more speaker.
Yeah.
So
So just to conclude, I really feel that there's not much of a difference between the challenges faced both by men or women in this post-COVID world. It's just that in India, women are at a disadvantage because the unequal distribution, as I said, of household work. But there are ways and means of overcoming it. Second, because I expect there are going to be a whole lot of girls in this audience. I think when we begin, we all begin as equals. It's only somewhere down the line that the inequalities starts creeping in, and there are certain additional responsibilities that one may be sort of challenged with. But of course, taking those responsibilities also is your choice, right? So what I see is girls sort of lose out in the race or opt out of the race because it's a lot of hard work and a lot of planning to stay in the race. So my sincere advice to all the young girls out here is that your NITIE education will prepare you for the technical aspects of the world. It's only after 4-5 years that you'll actually sort of learn the life skills that will help you stay in the race. So one should sort of prepare yourself both mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually to take on those challenges and really succeed and rise to senior positions in the corporate world or any other area of your choice. And it's very easy to sort of opt out and very difficult to stay up there. But I think it's worth it. It's really worth it at the end of the day. And my best wishes to all the students who have logged in for this session.
Thank you, Aparna. Thank you. Thank you. We have one more speaker, Ms. Jaya Janardanan, and although it's at the end of the session, I'm glad that we have her on board, and with her accomplishments in the fintech industry, I'm very keen to hear on her journey and her insights. In a way, we are covering several backgrounds and domains through this session. Thank you all for giving your inputs. Once we finish the last speaker's discussion, we do not have time for too many questions. However, we shall try to cover a couple maybe. But now we will have our last speaker. So over to you, Ms. Jaya. Keen to hear your insights.
Thank you, Rishmita. And, one is it's an honor to be among the top such accomplished women on this panel. And thanks to NITIE for having me here. I just thought I was hearing all of them speak, and it was all very interesting perspectives that were coming from everyone. So I just thought I'll just start with this funny little incident which happened to me during COVID. So it was 6 a.m. in the morning, and we were supposed to be having some call at 7:30, and we were supposed to have some 2-hour call. And I get this call from one of my colleagues suddenly at 6:15. And he said, so I was worried, why did he call up at 6:15? So I asked him, why did you call up at 6:15? What happened? He said, no, you told me that every morning you go for your run in the morning. So I thought I could discuss some points with you. I said, okay. So I did not tell him where I was. So I said, yeah, tell me. And suddenly he heard these vessels noise. And he said, are you at home or are you outside? So I said, no, I'm in the kitchen. He stopped for a moment, and then he said, kitchen? I said, yeah. He said, I said, yeah, I'm cooking. So he said, you cook? I said, yes, I cook. So he said, I said, why? And he had had a pause in his voice. So I said, why? He said, no, I thought you would have a cook. So while I was hearing everybody speak about pandemic and all that, I was suddenly realized that at some point of time, men have this mind in the mind saying that, when women reach a certain level, they will not be used to their traditional activities. And that's what that's, I just thought I should keep it over here because it left me with a very funny thought throughout afterwards, saying that what do men hold about women when they're in senior positions? Okay, having said that, okay, I'll just quickly take you through. So I never, I just had I mean, I came from a background which was, as rightly by, like everybody said, was very sure that you had to study, you had to kind of make sure that you had a good education, which I good. And then I never took on a job because I thought I would make it big in my space. But as I was working with a bank, and then I suddenly realized that I was getting to do a lot of stuff which probably came into my kitty in terms of like a challenge, and I took it on. And after some point, I realized that yeah, I am actually good. I mean, I'm actually good in technology, and I can take on more. And that's my journey for technology started. I wouldn't go into deep of what I did but one of the biggest things I took in my life, and the reason why I have been able to reach a stage, is I took a lot of risk in my life, in my career. Okay, and that risk that I took was earlier it was an unconscious risk. Later it was a conscious risk. I took it because I said, okay, the good of the risk and the bad of the risk is mine. The outcome is mine. But if I do good, I will, and don't succeed, it's fine. But that's the thing I took. I took a risk in my life. I did all types of roles which I thought never people would attempt to do. I got into technology when I didn't even know what technology. I got into Six Sigma when the whole world was thinking about what Six Sigma was all about. I got into centralized setting up when the world was not talking about centralized. So everything that I took was a risk, and I took a lot of risk with my career. And that is something that helped me move my, the way I moved up in my career was basic of, the ability to take risk, work on it. And then, for example, when I was doing well in my banking, I was offered a job in operational risk. I had no clue about operational risk, but like someone said in the panel, that it's obviously when a woman is offered a role, there are 8 things that the woman know about the role, but the 2 things they would not know in the role, the lady will say, no, I'm not taking the role. In men, if they only know 5 things, they'll say, oh, we know everything, and they take up the role. That's a difference. I just did that. I just said, okay, I know, I'll just take it up. I'll put my across, I'll try my this. What happens most? I won't succeed. It's okay, fine. And that's how I went into operational risk. So I actually started building my career based on a lot of risk I took. And I think I never repented that in my life, actually, because today, if I speak to you, if I'm acknowledged in the industry, it's only because of the risk I've taken. The other thing which I wanted to kind of, one of the, so I also wanted to share a little bit about what I actually did in the COVID period. Okay, so while we heard about everybody struggled between pandemic, between working life, between, the multiple things that they had to handle. I think I was working for an organization in a bank in Bangalore, and my mom was very unwell. So I had to keep toggling between Bombay and Bangalore. And my boss said that it's not going to be possible for you to toggle, so you need to decide. And I said, fine, I cannot. My mom was very important for me. Her health is important for me. So I said, okay. And in the mid of COVID, that's in March 18th, when COVID started, a day before is when I quit my job. Imagine quitting a job without having a job in hand. But I said, it's okay. Let me see what I can do. I'm sure I'll get something. But there was something else in store for me. While I landed up in a job a month later, what I actually got into is there was this inner thought process of doing something for women which came into my mind. And that was always there at the back of my mind. I met Madhura on LinkedIn as founder of Aspire for Her, somebody who was working for building the diversity ratio in the country. And I said, yes, there it is. This is a cause I need to work on. I connected with her, and we started working on this cause. We started building up the strategy as to how to build the diversity ratio in the country. We started connecting with colleges. Everybody was getting used to an online virtual mode. I started connecting with the students, colleges. We started building the strategy. Today we have 1-year-old on March 8th, born in pandemic, celebrated a year in pandemic. But that 1 year gave me a leap of how the whole how does the entire the system works in terms of diversity ratio, in terms of how people, why students, why do we not have diversity in the workforce? What happens when people leave? But what happens? Why do women not come back to work? And there was, I mean, we have just released a research report a day before the Women's Day in terms of how did pandemic affect workforce and women? What was the impact? I actually went and then started doing a course in corporate governance. And someone told me, Jaya, you are the person who's best utilized your pandemic days. I said, yes. I actually said, okay, I got a job afterwards. Someone approached me. I became a CEO for IndoStar and I started working. But what I realized was, and that's something I would like to share with all the students, there are times when things don't go the way you want. There are times when things will not be the way you want, but it's always in your internal interest to actually do something and make the best out of what you have. Think differently. So what has happened in this entire piece is, I'll tell you what happened in the entire piece. The when I got a job in IndoStar, this diversity piece and working in the was running at the time. Then when I had an opportunity to set up a customer service division in my organization, you know what I did? I said the customer service division will be only back to work women. My entire, so I suggested it to the CEO and he said, Jay, I'm fine with it. You do it the way you want it. So my today, if I'm very proudly, I can say my entire customer service woman service is actually back to work woman. And I'm so proud of it because everyone who came there actually were keen on coming back to work, was interested in coming back to work. So I know that those who've come there will be. So I am very proud to say that this pandemic actually made me a different person. Okay, so I actually look at it very positively because maybe that's the way I saw it, because I'm someone who actually, I'm a hardcore optimist. So I know that when there is something that is, when you do, there is something which will positively happen. So while career, actually, see what happens is we all speak about our challenges. We all speak, like, as I told you, I did not come from a family which was very positive about working. They just said that, okay, you should do your studies, you should get married, you should have a family. Whatever said and done, I didn't move into a marriage mode. I suddenly at some point realized that I was good. I had a good, I could, I was getting into a mode of becoming quite a strong person. I can stand. I had a lot of challenges. I used to be the only sole woman in a boardroom. I used to be the sole woman in a team of entire men. I used to be pounced upon by people by, in ways I would be put down. But at some point of time, I've always jumped back because, as my mentor always told me, it's not necessary to be aggressive and shouting and jumping all the time. You can actually get things done in a polite and nice and cool manner. And that stayed with me. And that's what actually, even today when I speak about it, and I was talking to the IEEE college students some time back, and I was talking to them about technology. Technology for me did not come because I was a graduate in software. I don't even have a degree in software. But today, when I lead a vertical of technology and I can actually talk to people about technology, it's because you have actually taken an opportunity, played with it, worked on it, and then reached a position. So the everything actually, it's all a matter of how you use each of your opportunity to the fullest, instead of actually thinking about why did it not happen to me this way? Why? And you can always take a positive out of anything wrong that is happening, because there's always two sides to it. So I always look at it. Maybe I did not get everything in a platter, but today I can say proudly, because it did not come to me in a platter, I value, I'm able to give back to the society. I'm able to, I can actually, I value the Aspire for her work that I do, and that there's something that I'm giving back to women. I never had mentor. I never had a woman mentor, but Aspire for her has 100 plus women mentors, and we are saying, come. We are telling students, come on board. have the mentor, do the mentoring, understand, take information, because this was never something that we got at our time. And I know how important mentoring is, how important, imagine someone like, Pooja coming and, giving, as you rightly said, she's from from NEET. I mean, she's in the world of industrial engineering. Imagine her being able to talk to you all. You would feel so high about it, which otherwise would have never happened to the students. They would have never been able to experience her, right? So the fact is that we got the hard way, but is there a way to give it back? And that's always that's always where I work on. So I know that you folks have actually overshot, all of us have overshot, so I don't want to take too much of time because we can keep talking about it. But thank you so much to each of you for your sharing, as well as the college for inviting us over. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jaya. I just wanted to summarize some of the key learnings that we have had from all the leaders whom we have today on board. The first and foremost that struck me is about focusing on always being a continuous learner and trying to upskill yourself at every point in time. Something that came across common from all of you. The second one, which was quite, I think that's very important and something that we generally do not think about as women, is about building our networks, both professional and social, and learning to leverage that. We shy away from doing the same thing. And I think that's a very important point. Another one, which was quite, very specific to our discussion today, is learning to recognize the gender-centric stereotypes that are present. Some of these that we set up on ourselves, some of that which are there in society, but learning to understand and recognize the ones that we have set for ourselves and trying to see ways in which we can get out of those, and with a proper vision and with the proper planning, or learning to understanding the tools and resources that we have, and calling for help wherever required, never shying away from doing so. Another one which is important is, as women, we also probably try to satisfy too many expectations. Maybe how we could set rules and boundaries for ourselves is very, very important. And finally, I think, and this one is the favorite of all for me personally, is learn to take the seat at the table. I guess this is something that we should always etch in our minds, that if we've been called to the table, it's because we are capable, and we have to learn to take the seat or claim the seat. That could be the other way to look at it. So we do not have too much time for questions and answers from the audience. And I think quite a lot has been provided to us through the various anecdotes that you have shared, a lot of key learnings that we found. I have one question that I'm setting across for all the panelists, and we'll be following the same order that we had, is, you all are leaders, and right now in your own domains. And what we are very curious to know is, have you identified something that makes you that leader? So what is that one word or phrase that you could use to describe your leadership style as of today? So I would start with Dr. Radhika ma'am. What is that one word or phrase?
So, okay, that's actually an easy one for me because I've often thought about it. The one word I would describe is empathy. I believe as women, we do have a natural affinity towards being empathetic. We see that in how we treat our family, our parents, our children, our husband, the entire network that we work with. And that empathetic ear is extremely valuable when you are trying to lead a team, because you need to understand the strengths of all the people on your team. And I've always thought of my team as my family. And so when I do that, I feel like, you're never envious of your children. You're never envious of what they accomplish. You want them to do the best. And that's how I felt about my team, and listening and hearing their issues and what they want to accomplish, and helping them accomplish. So I would go with empathy. That's my word.
That's great. Yeah. So Nishath ma'am, you're next in line. So what is that one word or phrase?
Okay, I'll use two quick words. Yeah, I think one is authenticity. Yeah, I think the more we bring, I think I bring myself to work literally. So with all the perfections and imperfections, I bring myself to work. And the second thing, excellence. I think if excellence is a very holier than thou word. Let me say care. Yeah? I think I care about what I do. I want to make it count, and in everything that I do, then it shows. And whether or not it's the best, it's always something that I have put my mind to. So those are the two things: authentic and caring.
Great. So Dr. Pooja.
So I'm going to also use two words, one which represents the industrial engineering world itself, which is transformational. So I believe in looking at anything, anywhere I'm engaged to create an impact, and how do I transform towards getting better. And the second phrase I'll try to say, which kind of reflects what, Nishath and Radhika have talked about empathy, but for me, it's more around inclusive and servile leadership. I believe that not only do we need to just charge people out and give them, but kind of roll up your sleeves and work with them. So to me, two words is wherever I am, I love to create that impact by transforming and including and working with them. That difference.
Excellent. So next we have Aparna. So what is that one word or phrase that describes your leadership style?
Yeah. So I would say, like inspiration along with perspiration. Really, really give that vision, to your team and to the organization. And by perspiration, I mean two things: like you lead from the front, and of course, as I said, there's no substitute like intellect, everything being equal for great and hard work. Yeah, for the team members side, from the team members as well. Yeah.
Okay, great. And then we have Ms. Jaya. Jaya ma'am, what do you think describes you and your leadership style?
So this is more than me. This is how I'm quite hardcore goal focused as a leader. When it comes to delivery, I don't think anyone can beat me in that, because I'm very focused on that. So goal focused is one, and second, something which Pooja mentioned, I have that. I'm someone who actually is innovative, and therefore I I wouldn't say it is, but I also pull up my sleeve and work. So inclusiveness and working with the team. I also have I always look at things very differently. So this is how I would describe myself.
Excellent. So I would also say that I really like the confidence with which you said, yes, I am goal focused and owning it. Thank you all. I think we had a great set of learnings on the International Women's Day. It comes in every year, and it's a time that we take a step back and try to think about where we have reached as women today and what more could be done for equality. So I think this is a great step, and it has a lot of good learnings and insights and motivation for our students and for the youth across the country. It's very nice to see, and I think we are very happy that we could bring in the American and Indian American audiences also together on this podium along with our Indian audiences. And I'm really thankful to Seema ma'am for giving me this opportunity for moderating today's session. So over to you, ma'am, and over to you, Deblina.
Thank you, Professor Shushmita Narayan ma'am, for seamlessly moderating the whole session. Thank you to the panelists for that amazing discussion. It has been our privilege to listen to your insights on the theme and the questions that were asked and the different pointers that we got. It has been an absolute privilege. Now we would like to request Professor Seema Unnikrishnan ma'am to announce the winners of the various competitions that were held around the celebration of International Women's Day 2021. So over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Deblina. I'll just take 2 minutes for this. We had a whole lot of events which were conducted during the celebration. So I'll start with the winners of the quiz competition. We have Siddhant and Preeti Bole, who won the quiz competition. Then we had a very good debate competition. I would also like to thank the judges, Professor Priyanka, Professor Sumi, I also had the honor of sitting through the debate competition. The first prize goes to Ananta Krishnan and Shahs, and the second prize to Yashvi Sharma. Drawing competition, we had different categories. In the children category, we have Sukeshini and